I've spent my entire life putting things off, and after thousands of hours sifting through the internet, I've stumbled upon a few things I felt lucky to have learned. I'm Elijah, and this is why videos about procrastination don't help. First things first, this isn't your typical video essay about procrastination. It's the opposite of that. Many videos of this genre are principally copies of one another, varying in only animation style, voiceovers, or choice of cringy procrastination jokes.
And everybody else is just procrastinating on raising their hand.
This video is critiquing those videos. Stick around, and I'll spend some time breaking down how to really stop your procrastination. Got it? Good. These videos do a fine job at identifying and parsing out the problem, but end up lacking in their execution of how to resolve them. Drowning the audience with seemingly infinite vague tips and tricks wasn't good enough for me, and I expect that it wasn't good enough for most of you, which is a shame because these videos are in a particularly unique position to help people. When someone is stuck, unable to find interest in the world, it's much easier for them to watch a video than it is to read a book. Let's be honest, they're probably binging on YouTube videos anyway. But seriously, procrastination is a dragon. Complex, terrifying, and can feel damn near magic. These videos provide a few weapons meant to slay the dragon, but they don't actually show you how to use them. Why We Procrastinate by Vic Nithi. Result number 3 of a YouTube search for procrastination. Vic describes why procrastination feels like an argument in your head. And shocker, it's because you're literally having an argument in your head. You have your prefrontal cortex, the thinking part of your brain, the one wanting you to work, and then you have your limbic system, a more primitive part of your brain that can't stop making you think about the newest Netflix original. Your limbic system is home to your amygdala, the stress, anxiety, and fight or flight part of your brain that reacts to threatening stimulus. And it's this deceptive part of your brain that is equating your projects, most often their deadlines, with the kinds of threats our ancestors had to deal with. So when you're stressed,
your prefrontal cortex, the decision maker, shuts down. Because if you see a wild lion in the jungle, you don't want a voice in your head to remind you that you have an essay to write. You have to focus on what's going on in the world around you and responding to physiological needs.
The whole dragon thing from earlier, that's only partly a metaphor. It's how your brain sees the projects you're avoiding. So, can you really blame it? Dragons are pretty scary, dude. The Reason You Procrastinate by Mel Robbins. Result number 2 of a YouTube search for procrastination. Mel mentions that procrastination is a way for us to relieve stress, equating it to taking a smoke break. The avoidance technique you're using actually becomes the same as any other addiction. Powerful synapses form in your brain and do everything they can to teach your body that avoiding all threatening stimulus is the best way to survive and thrive. In that way, quitting procrastination is just like quitting smoking. Inside the Mind of a Master Procrastinator by Tim Urban. Consistently the top result of a YouTube search for procrastination. Urban's talk takes a bit of a turn. He discusses a lighthearted blog post he had made about procrastination, and then about the surprising responses it received. Thousands of emails from all walks of life just trying to express that they struggle from procrastination too.
What struck me was the contrast between the light tone of the post and the heaviness of these emails. These people were writing with intense frustration about what procrastination had done to their lives.
Continuing down this train of thought, he divides his old understanding of procrastination in two, with the first kind being the deadline-based avoiding of work that we all think about, and a second kind, where the deadlines we're so terrified of aren't around anymore.
If you want to have a career where you want to be a self-starter, something in the arts, something entrepreneurial, There's no deadlines on those things at first, because nothing's happening at first, not until you've gone out and done the hard work to get some momentum, to get things going. There's also all kinds of important things outside of your career that don't involve any deadlines, like seeing your family, or exercising and taking care of your health, working on your relationship, or getting out of a relationship that isn't working. And it's this long-term kind of procrastination that's much less visible and much less talked about than the funnier, short-term, deadline-based kind. It's usually suffered quietly and privately, and it can be the source of a huge amount of long-term unhappiness and regrets.
If you can remember these 3 lessons about procrastination, you're equipped with everything you need to know. 1. Procrastination is an argument in your head. It's completely natural and evolved to keep us alive, but now it's keeping us from living our fullest lives. 2. Procrastination is an addiction. It works through the same neurotransmitters as hard drugs or cigarettes. 3. Procrastination is a big deal. We get lost in our simplified understanding. Procrastination is putting your homework off until the last second, but it's also a form of chronic apathy. These videos each respond to procrastination in a slightly different way, but they all fall into the exact same trap. Regardless of how they tiptoe around it, their advice can be broken down into the same ineffective sentence: just stop procrastinating. They hand you a sword, then expect that you'll successfully slay a dragon. Again, I don't know if you've ever seen a dragon, but there's a reason why the whole town is scared of them. It's because it takes far more than just the right weapons to take one down. Look, I know what it feels like to be unable to get out of bed, because I've been there. The problem was hardly ever that I didn't have the right weapons. It's that I was unable to get myself confident enough to approach the dragon in the first place. Deep down, when I was stranded in bed, I wanted to be productive. I cared about the world around me, but I felt paralyzed by the brain that was supposed to be helping me succeed. My goal isn't to describe to you what chronic procrastination or depression is, or even cop some pity, but I do know that many people out there are actively hurting. And when I was in my darkest moments, I turned to videos like these. They didn't help much, but now I've learned quite a bit on the subject, and I thought I might be able to help at least one person who needed it. So if that's you, listen up. In 2011, there was a study conducted at the Yale University School of Medicine about the impact that metacognitive awareness-based therapy had on helping people to quit smoking. Compared with the standard quit smoking programs we usually use, researchers found that the group who utilized mindfulness and metacognitive techniques were over 5 times more successful at overcoming their addiction to cigarettes. Now that I've got your attention and probably a little bit of your skepticism, let me break down more about how the metacognitive strategy works. The more you understand how it functions, the more it makes sense that it's been flooding into university classrooms and harboring such amazing results. Metacognition is actually an extremely complex aspect of our social sciences that people have spent their careers to fully understand. Conveniently for our purposes, we barely have to know what it means to reap its benefits. Metacognition is an awareness and understanding of one's own thought processes. And don't worry, the remainder of this video is going to be me repeatedly explaining what that means and why it matters. It's all about methodology. For example, our typical anti-smoking techniques are based in training people to avoid their urges and distract themselves from cravings. Just turn off those desires.
Now, let's take a look at these cookies. They just came out of the oven. Oh, they are so good. Turn it off. You want those cookies even more now, right?
It's no surprise that this approach only gets through to 5% of people. We know that procrastination is an argument in our head, and when other videos fixate on this older method of thinking, they're asking you to avoid that argument. What we find is that it's pretty damn hard to hide from something that's inside your brain. Through the metacognitive approach, on the other hand, you aren't asked to fight through the impossibly loud argument in your head. You're taught how to turn the volume down. If your goal is to stomp out an addiction, the trick isn't to distract yourself from the cravings, but to embrace them. Not by doing it more, but learning about it. Another simplified way of understanding metacognition is to think of it as playing the why game. Recognize what you're thinking, then asking why that is. It's increasingly being taught in schools around the world because it's been found to make remembering topics or regulating emotions and motivations much easier. It's a technique that's teaching us how to learn. What we know about metacognition is that it has everything to do with awareness. And the higher your awareness on any given topic, the more comfortable you will be at facing it. And you already know that to be true. The more you do something, the more comfortable you become with it. With more awareness, the threatening stimulus begins to fade, and so quieting the argument in your head that had been keeping you from working. Your amygdala can be loud. Think of a little boy that can't sleep because he's afraid of the monsters in his closet. The ambiguous shadows coming from the unknown are more than enough to keep him awake at night, shaking in fear. His amygdala screaming so loudly that those monsters are all he can possibly focus on. A little more awareness from cutting on the lights, and we show him that the shadows he was afraid of were just from an old winter coat. And presto, his amygdala shuts right up. Awareness that the shadows in your closet are just from clothes and not monsters connects some of the dots for your brain. In other words, awareness of the unknown quiets your mental argument. This is why our best treatment for someone with debilitating anxiety is to slowly expose them to what they are afraid of. The more they understand it, the more brave they become. If your annoying amygdala is afraid of what it doesn't understand, then the best way to combat the unknown is to learn. So if you were to, watch an awesome video about procrastination and learn why it is that your brain is afraid, that unknown you're avoiding when you procrastinate becomes a little more known. You've connected some of the dots your brain had been struggling to connect, and your amygdala has nothing left to be afraid of because you've taken the time to show it that there are no monsters in its closet. Knowledge of metacognition has opened many doors into my understanding of the world. In one way, it's why I love learning so much. Leveraging metacognition doesn't mean that you have to question every thought you have, but it sure seems like the more whys you ask, the more wise you become. The more informed you are, the more inform you are. I urge you to consciously notice your desires to procrastinate. Right now, you may question if you're experiencing cravings. You might think you just procrastinate. But I'm telling you, the more you purposefully think about them, the more aware of them you will become. For a while, it's likely that you begin to feel like you're thinking about procrastination more than ever, which can feel counterintuitive, but all the research indicates that if you take the time to work on this problem now and experience more stress in the short term, when that stress comes back down, it stays down. I could talk about this for hours, but I think I just have one last thing to say. I am no expert in psychology whatsoever. I'm just a kid who read a couple of books and a couple dozen scientific papers online. I can't give you much of anything with absolute certainty, but what I can give you is this YouTube video. It has taken me months to make this video. Years, really. When I started wanting to make videos like this on YouTube, I would work on it once every couple months. As I researched and became increasingly knowledgeable about metacognitive strategies, I've worked more and more. Wanting to be a YouTuber went from a monthly occurrence to a daily one. I worked to save the money for all my equipment and editing software. I researched to learn how to edit videos, let alone the few hundred hours I've sunk into researching this topic in particular. The more informed I became, the less I've procrastinated. I have no clue how you'll feel about what I've come to think, but I hope this video acts as proof that there might be something to take away from these ideas. Good luck with whatever you've been putting off. You've got your weapon and a much better idea of how to use it. I need you to be the hero now, okay? Because you are the hero of your own story. Wise and informed, the hero is always ready to face the dragon. For what it's worth, I believe in you. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, throw me a like, and you should for sure probably subscribe. I feel like I plan to keep researching and learning and doing deep dives into similar topics. I'll be sure to share any useful information I find along the way. If you have any suggestions for other topics I could research, leave me a comment. If you have any tips for video editing, leave me a comment. Hell, if you want to talk to me about anything, comment. I'd love to have a conversation. Until next time, keep your head up.